We acknowledge that we are on the traditional lands of the Kulin Nation. We pay our respects to elders, past, present and emerging, and acknowledge the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people's spirit, imagination and rich history of storytelling and humour that is an inspiration for all Australians.
Hello! Welcome to another episode of The Bearer of Weird News. As always, my friends, I am your host, the suppository of all wisdom, Matt Harvey. So I'd just like to thank you guys for tuning in to another episode, or if this is your first episode, for tuning in for your first episode. And I hope that you will also become a loyal viewer, because it is loyal viewers like you who make all of this possible. We wouldn't be able to do it without loyal listeners, and even loyaler listeners who just have a little bit of money to spare and choose to give it to me instead of, say, a deserving charity. Because I feel like those are the special kinds of people. Or at the very least, someone who isn't like a cause that is just creating some rentless bullshit. You can do that if you want to. If that's the sort of thing you want to do, you can do that over at patreon.com/MattHarveyStuff. But as we always say, you can't do it alone, no matter how loyal you are. None of this would be possible, of course, without our episode's major sponsor. And this is a bit of a special one. This episode is brought to you by National Skeptics Day. Yeah, you would think, given we are the natural creators of bullshit, National Skeptics Day would be a bit of a mismatch. But I tell you, we're doing really well. We are here for National Skeptics Day, if you even believe that such a thing could exist. And I'd like you, our listeners, to celebrate National Skeptics Day in any number of ways. There's a number of ways to celebrate it. You can host a brunch where you encourage your friends to vent about their work. Then make sure you bring a lie detector, hook them up to it, and interrogate their claims about their work relentlessly. Break them if you must. Just, question the narrative that they're giving you. In schools, children will reenact the life of Galileo, bravely doubting everything that the church tells them until the church politely excuses them from existence for heresy. A beautiful way to celebrate the day. Meanwhile, politicians are constantly observing the day by continuing their year-round celebration of skepticism by either doubting climate change or the ability of renewables to make significant impact on said climate change. So we'd just like to thank them for their year-round support of National Skeptics Day. And of course, no celebration of National Skeptics Day would be complete without, at 3 p.m, taking a moment of silence, which will be held to remember the great skeptics of history. Of course, Thomas the Apostle, doubting is literally his brand. Socrates, who asked so many questions they actually killed him for it. And of course, the patron saint of doubt, Schrodinger's cat. That slippery mess of existence and non-existence that was invented to skeptically question the Copenhagen interpretation of quantum mechanics. That is how skeptical Schrodinger's cat is. And although scientists remain skeptical about the very existence of silence, can it even be conclusively proven to exist? That's the question I ask. Because, think about it guys, if silence happens in a room and nobody is around to hear it, does it even exist? Huh? It's a real thinker, that one. However, in labs across the world, scientists still try to measure silence. How can you measure something that you can't hear? They build echo-free chambers so quiet that you can hear your own blood moving. You spend 10 minutes in one of those and you begin to question not just the existence of silence, but of yourself. It's like meditating inside a void. Except the void is louder company. The quieter things get around you, the louder everything is. The more silence that science has created, the harder it is to believe that anything can be quiet. Your blood pumping, moving around your body, you can hear it throbbing all around. Does that sound like silence to you? But of course, this would be even less possible, my friends, even less possible without my live shows. That's right. And on that note, I have the following upcoming live shows that I would love for you to attend. Are you in Mildura? Do you linger near the border of Victoria and New South Wales? Then please come see my show, I Got Bit by a Monkey Once, at the Listo Trapeze on the 1st of November. Tickets are on sale now. I'd love to sell them out. Just come on over and see a really fun show. I then have the same show in Albury, so if you're on a different part of the border, come over to Albury and check out the show. And in Canberra on November 22nd. The Albury show is November 21st, by the way. The Canberra show November 22nd as part of the Canberra Fringe Festival. So if you'd like to come out and check out my storytelling and stand-up show, I Got Bit by a Monkey Once, those are the places to check it out. I will be debuting my brand new show, Jokes About the Time That I Got Detained in America and Other Stories, in the Adelaide Fringe, March 10th till 15th. And I will also be bringing it to the Melbourne International Comedy Festival. I just haven't locked in the dates yet. So keep an eye out for any of those. If you're going to be in any of those areas and you enjoy this podcast, do come out and check it out. I think it's going to be a good one, guys. Until then, I will be the bearer of weird news. So, let's get into the headlines. Seven West Media and Southern Cross Media are looking at merging to form a new company that will do an unfounded hit piece on you, then chase you down in the street, then talk about how dodgy you are on the morning radio, in between playing some Nickelback. So it sounds like they've got it all covered over there. This new media outlet will be the new home of telling people, if you don't love it, leave. The potential Channel 7 and Southern Cross Austereo merger promises unparalleled racism efficiency in any newsroom. The merger will be such a cost-saving measure, it will see stations cutting costs by recycling the same old three outdated white male opinions across all platforms and cutting redundant departments like fact-checking and human decency. Susan Ley has issued her shadow ministers with specific performance indicators, imposing a new level of accountability on frontbenchers to avoid a repeat of Peter Dutton's policy failures. The KPIs include 1 attack on the ABC, 1 on renewables, and 2 on inner city elites per week, promising new levels of accountability including 3 racist dog whistles per quarter and blaming Labour faster than ever before. Snapchat has announced that it will start charging for the storing of photos and videos, making it clear that it fundamentally misunderstands why people started using Snapchat in the first place. After all, it was the app made famous for sending nudes that would disappear. Then they started secretly storing those nudes, and now they're threatening to delete the nudes unless you pay them. I say delete away, Snapchat. Get rid of all of our nudes. That'll be a great time for everybody. Send everyone who has ever sent a nude via Snapchat. 2 weeks into the US government shutdown, Americans have been reassured that despite the shutdown, National Guard deployed in Washington DC will continue their mission-critical work of clearing trash, spreading mulch, painting fences, and pruning trees. But Trump has assured the people that the shutdown won't affect crucial services like golf trips, all-caps tweets, and morally questionable actions. The shutdowns are due to Democrats refusing to allow Republicans to compromise on what little healthcare Americans already have, which would leave people with only 3 healthcare options: either GoFundMe, hopes and prayers, or they're really in danger, they might have to bust out the old germ locks. So thoughts and prayers for them all. Singapore's Prime Minister has offered his condolences after an Optus network technical failure last month that resulted in the deaths of 3 Australians. The Optus outrage victims are remembered in a heartfelt statement sent via carrier pigeon just to ensure that it actually arrives, because we wouldn't want things to go awry. In response, Optus has started mitigating PR with offers of a $10 bonus discount on next bill and 500 megabytes of rollover data, ooh la la, plus the new pre-mourned condolences data plan for inevitable future disasters. An undersea submersible has spotted crabs, worms and fish thriving on the surfaces of World War II explosives that were thought to be toxic to marine life. At a former weapons dump site in the Baltic Sea, scientists found more creatures living on top of warheads than in the actual surrounding seabeds. Upon hearing this news, Lockheed Martin immediately started rebranding as an environmental sustainability and reef-saving company so that they can apply for funding money and start dumping all their old weapons in the ocean. It's a win-win, really. According to Victoria Premier Jacinda Allen, Melbourne's Metro Tunnel will open in early December and promises to deliver 1,000 new replacement train services immediately. The tunnel is full of brand new opportunities for ticket inspectors and PSOs, with 5 new stations to abuse students, old people and immigrants struggling to understand the failing MyKey system. Ticket inspectors have begun implementing excessive force best practices, privacy invasions, group intimidation practice, choke slam training and, of course, pinning down old people drills. Jacinda Allen has come out to assure commuters the tunnel will be safe for public use, with the notable exception of whenever there are ticket inspectors patrolling. Alrighty guys, that brings us to the end of the headlines for this episode. Now, onto the bigger news, starting with sunscreen news. As the government continues to increase approvals for coal mining, and air temperatures over Antarctica have soared 35 degrees above average, bringing unseasonable warmth in the eastern states of Australia, in conditions similar to 2019, when sudden warming over Antarctica led to dry conditions in Australia, which influenced the mega fires over the Black Summer of 2019 to 2020. You remember those? So that's something for us to look forward to. What a good time. You should really remember those because they were so large that they could be seen from space. And people say no man-made object can be seen from space. I mean, look, here we are, the reigning champions of getting the attention of aliens, or maybe warning them to maybe not come here because the fires are so big they can be seen from space. And fortunately, despite all of these attempts to bake Australia, we still have what I would call reliable protection from the increasingly hot sun.
Australia's sunscreen scandal is growing tonight, with more brands pulled from the shelves over SPF concerns.
Fuck! Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? I don't know like if you guys have noticed, some of you definitely haven't because you're listening to this as a podcast, but for those of you who haven't, just a little heads up for you, I am excessively white, and some of us whiteys, we struggle a little bit with the sun, especially in this country, because I don't know if you know this, we're not really supposed to be here. We immigrated here rather than evolving here for 40,000 years alongside the environment. So you can see I am of a complexion where even racists say I'm a little bit too light, you know what I mean? And on a selfish note, I already wear sunscreen for about 6 months of the year, from October through to March, and sometimes even longer. Look, genuinely, here's a genuine thing for you. I used to work outdoors, right? And my accountant was looking for things to write off, as accountants do, and he found out where I worked, looked me up and down, and then just went, sunscreen. It's clear, right? It's quite clear that I need protection from the sun. So, I can't really do bad sunscreen. So can we get an idea of what's happening, please?
In June, consumer group Choice uncovered numerous sunscreens with SPF performance significantly below what was advertised. The worst performer, Ultraviolet's Lean Screen, which was pulled from shelves after testing revealed the 50-plus brand showed an SPF of 4.
4? 4? Honestly, it's infuriating. 4. An SPF of 4 wouldn't protect me from a hot cross bun. I live in Australia, not England. I'm not asking for much. I just want a product that doesn't turn me into the human creme brulee, because we all know that they were the worst addition to the Fantastic Four. I used to think that SPF stood for Sun Protection Factor. Turns out it stands for Sincerely Probably False. The Therapeutic Goods Administration said 21 sunscreens that share the same base formulation have been recalled, paused, or are currently under review. This is a problem, my friends. Claiming something has a specific SPF actually means something to people. It's not like claiming that food is all natural or certified organic or is artisanal. No, I need to be able to trust this claim. I don't want to discover that SPF 50 plus actually means 50-50 chance that it will actually work. Those odds are terrible and I cannot risk it. As a result of this, the Therapeutic Goods Administration advises consumers who have purchased one of the affected sunscreens may wish to consider using an alternative product until the TGA completes its review. So now, to protect the people, the government is going to have to introduce a nationwide no hat, no play policy. The enforcement will be handled by retired lifeguards with megaphones and deep emotional scars. Because if anyone knows the value of a hat in the sun, it is old lifeguards. This is going to function much like our mandatory helmet policy. There is, of course, going to be natural resistance to this form of protection. Groups such as hairdressers or the nation's stalking community, and those with large heads who claim that they are being forced to spend more money than other people because they have to buy larger hats. And although the government mandate does have some wiggle room in its definition of a hat, opening it right up so it doesn't have to be like a store-bought hat, you know what I mean? We can have some fun with it. You know, you could wear a carved out watermelon, you could wear a chicken bucket, I know you guys love doing that. Maybe you could turn old DVD cases into a hat, I mean, you're not using them for anything else. Two taxidermy dash hounds stapled together. That would be a great hat for somebody, because, you know, they're not good for anything else, they're not real dogs. It's going to be like fashions of the field, but the field is the entire country, you know? Good fun for everyone. Just, there is one strict rule, no tinfoil hats, because in the Australian sun, they're simply going to cook the sweet, sweet brain meats inside your head, and we can't have that. For those who refuse to take part in the national no hat, no play mandate, well, sunscreen companies, they've got your back, if you still trust them, that is. Because they've launched their new SPF 1000 protection range, which comes in both microwave and refrigerator box for the gentleman who says, I have nothing to hide, but I sure still would like to. These aren't the only measures being put in place. Of course, the government will be updating the old meaning of slip, slop, slap to the new climate apocalypse version of slip, slop, slap. It's going to be slip into chemo, slop on some aloe, and slap yourself for trusting corporations. Simple. Although the nation's gingers, my people, are growing increasingly concerned and have demanded a royal commission into the sunscreen's lies, as they have been put in the most danger by this blatant misrepresentation of SPF factors. We have to just wait until nightfall so that we can actually leave the house and drop our letters of concern into the nearest letterbox. Courts will of course have to be held during the evening or some sort of night session so that ginger witnesses can come forth and speak on how they have had to turn into a society of untanned night dwellers roaming gangs of large-eyed, outraged alabaster spirits forced to flitter from hiding place to hiding place, their perpetual night skin becoming so sensitive to even the moonlight that it becomes a burning presence. I mean, we just want to see the sun one more time. Is that too much to ask? Though in the interim, to avoid further reputational damage and potential lawsuits, all sunscreen brands have updated their SPF ratings with a new warning system for dodging responsibility, which is very important for companies to do. So of course, to abide by this new warning system, I've been charged with the responsibility of bringing this new system to the people. So the lowest level of responsibility dodging is what we call the chukkas. So if you see that chukkas on this bottle of sunscreen, it's a fun one. It's light, it's jovial, but hey, it's up to you. It's just like good luck, you know what I mean? Chukkas. If you put this on, chukkas. Right. Second level of responsibility. That's yeah, nah, nah, yeah. Right, which is good because it carries like a certain ambiguity as a sentence. And, you know, it could be interpreted either way. Is it supposed? Will this protect me from the sun? Yeah, nah, nah, yeah. Who could say? Right, moving up a level of responsibility, if you choose to use this one, costs a little bit more money. It's called You're on Your Own, Mate, which is admittedly a rare admission of lack of knowledge from the beauty industry. But hey, if you want to do this one, you're on your own, mate. And of course, the final level of avoiding responsibility, you see this one on your sunscreen label, it is completely up to you. It is Buckley's chance. Yes, this level of responsibility dodging means that they won't have to answer any questions for at least a 30-year stint. Oh, and our new super high responsibility level for responsibility dodging, which if you use this one, be warned, you definitely are taking all of the risk, okay? I cannot stress this enough. The final level of responsibility dodging, it's sort of like the extreme chilies, you know, on the high end of the Scoville rating. Like if you imbue one of those, that's on you. You've done it. So this level of responsibility is fucked if I know, which is also the name of the new national sunscreen brand. We're going to move on now to automated news. Whenever possible, governments of all kinds, be they right-wing or centrist presenting as left-wing, they do love to outsource work to consultation companies like KPMG, EY and Deloitte, companies of such ambiguous outputting that I'm surprised anyone knows to hire them to do any job at all. Maybe whenever you walk in the office, they're just like, do you do this? And the consultants are like, do we? Should we just say yes? Yeah. And it's like, yeah, we do that. Of course we do that. I'm pretty sure the corporate mottos are, fuck it, let's give it a go. I can say for sure the only thing that they do produce with consistency is invoices. I can only liken them to Clippy, you know, in that they pop up unnecessarily and insert themselves when nobody asks them to do so. You just see a little KPMG consultant pop up and is like, oh hey, looks like you're trying to govern. Would you like me to charge you for that? No, Clippy, no. Nobody wants your help composing erotic fan fiction. Just leave me and my dirty thoughts alone, please. Nonetheless, the government loves to get them involved in reports and other government tasks, which, it seems, they then continue the tradition of outsourcing by themselves outsourcing it again. But this time, they outsource it to AI. Yeah. As it turns out, Deloitte will be required to issue a partial refund to the Albanese government after admitting that it used AI to create a $440,000 report full of errors, including 3 non-existent academic references and a made-up quote from a federal court judgment. Which is bad enough as it is, but I need you to understand, dear listeners, the report that they made was a report to the Department of Employment and Workplace Relations to review the targeted compliance framework and its IT systems that were used to automate penalties in the welfare system if mutual obligations weren't met by job seekers. So let me just clear that up. That story again. A report about issues with automating systems in the welfare system used AI to automate a report about why automating systems was bad. Is this report written by a late 90s Alanis Morissette? Because it doesn't seem to understand irony. Now, the irony of that joke is that isn't really like irony in the classic definition of irony, you know, and some of my clever listeners, they probably already know that. Which actually makes it ironic in the classic sense. Ha! Gotcha, fuckers! It was a literary trap the whole time, and all it took was you trying to actually the situation to make it become correct. Sucks to be you, suckers! Now, Deloitte did admit its welfare automation report contained fake references and fabricated quotes from non-existent judges. But they insist that the invoice was heavily peer-reviewed. Not a detail was missed. They dotted every decimal point and crossed every dollar sign. Deloitte has since apologised for the report, promising future reports will be fully human error only. And that's a guarantee that you can take to the bank and put next to the $440,000 that they've already deposited there. Now, to be fair and all balanced and avoid defamation, remember Deloitte has deep pockets and I don't want to get stuck in those pockets. Deloitte has agreed to provide a partial refund of the $440,000 they were paid to not generate a report that contained several errors and just simply made up evidence to back its own claims. While they have yet to confirm the value that they said that they would return, they will repay the final installment under their contract, which will be made public after the transaction is finalized. So wait a minute. They can just choose how much they want to pay back? I was under the impression that the government was so broke that it needed to pursue debts as small as $300 from the poorest, most vulnerable members of society in order to balance its budget. Well, apparently, financial accountability has an income threshold. Is this you, government? Is this you?
It's dubbed RoboTax, and it sounds eerily familiar.
My clients were not aware of these debts.
A controversial campaign by the Australian Taxation Office to collect on thousands of historical debts, some more than 2 decades old.
So tell me, government, are you broke or not? Because as far as I can tell, you still haven't tracked down JobKeeper overpayments from companies like Harvey Norman. Yeah, I still haven't forgotten about you, Harvey Norman, you bottom-feeding money vampire fuck-up. Seems there will be some very different rules for the corporations than there are for those of us you deemed have earned money erroneously from the government. You know you have whole teams of people to investigate people for that, right? Maybe they can be redeployed as a forensic investigation team into corporations. Then we can film them chasing down wayward corporations and dispensing justice, you know, like Border Patrol, but going after people who actually deserve to be shamed on national television. That's something that I would watch. Like, that's an actual true crime podcast that I could get into. If I was getting paid $440,000, I'd also happily just pay back a small chunk of it if I got to choose however much that meant, and if my choosing of that meant that you also signed 35 new contracts with me worth a total of $47.1 million, so that I don't really have to do any work, so that I can outsource that to AI again, but then this time just make sure the references are checked. Like, are you really losing any money at all? You should be losing contracts. That's what you should be doing. There should be some harsh punishments. We could give some small firms this work for less money. I think they'd love it. And guess what? They'd get the fucking work done properly. Now, I think the biggest concern that nobody has mentioned yet, in order to get these reports, Deloitte would have had to have uploaded sensitive government data to an unsecured system like ChatGPT, right? That's really the only way that this could have been done. Deloitte, one of the world's largest consulting firms, took sensitive government data, theoretically, and effectively said, hey, let's feed the Australian welfare system into a magic word machine and see what it burps up. That should be fun. A website whose main claim to fame is stealing the world's knowledge and art so that it can vomit out the likes of Harry Potter and in the style of Quentin Tarantino, and not even asking for any pay for violating both of those properties by smashing them together in an unacceptable way. Way too many descriptions of feet in that book. We can barely trust the government with your data at the best of times, let alone the Steelomatic 3000, and now Deloitte is just giving it to an algorithm that still can't tell the difference between fictional citations and reality itself. I'm tempted to admonish the machine for anything, but there's a fair chunk of humanity that also struggles with the idea that the Earth is round, or that the time of year that you are born can influence your personality, or that the Big Bang Theory is a comedy instead of a cry for help. So I guess I can't be too harsh on old ChatGPT. Now, despite proving that they have not done the work themselves, Labor Senator Deborah O'Neill says the government should... Now that they've proved that they did not do the work themselves, Labor Senator Deborah O'Neill says the government should demand a full refund from Deloitte. The government confirmed, despite the errors, it will continue paying Deloitte as expensive mistakes are core to both of their brand identities. It's like a toxic relationship where the only safe word is consulting fee, ooh, consulting fee. On the plus side though, the AI that generated the fabricated Deloitte report has now been promoted to partner, so that's nice. So it's not all bad, I guess. If anyone's going to have to lose a job, it might as well be someone who wasn't doing that job in the first place. Deloitte, however, remains perpetually defiant, defending the report, claiming, well, it still has less errors than RoboDid actually did, so are we doing such a bad job? Moving on now, my friends, it is Future News! The Future Fund, that's Australia's sovereign wealth fund. Simply put, the government's intergenerational fund that invests savings from taxpayers. They claim their purpose is to invest for the benefit of future generations of Australians. So it is with that purpose in mind that I can only assume that the reason that I am talking about them right now is because there has been a news story about how fucking awesome a job that they are doing.
So The Guardian dropped this piece today, revealing that Australia's $250 billion future fund has made $76 million in profits from investing in weapons manufacturers since 2023.
Motherfuckers! Can anybody just do their fucking job ethically? Can we just have one nice thing that doesn't come at horrible cost? You know what I mean? Right, so this whole country is the result of a wish made on a monkey's paw, so the consequences mostly end up hurting us. You know, like a monkey's paw holding a boomerang. Alright, let's get into this. So, Australia's Future Fund has disclosed huge profits from weapons manufacturers, despite fierce criticisms for support of that industry, not only from the people of Australia, but from the vast majority of the good and decent people across history. Anyone who has morals about not supporting a genocide, and, well, to be honest, our secret benefactor, Daffy Duck, who has been on the receiving end of an arms race with Elmer Fudd since 1951. He's an angry duck, and he's seen enough violence against his people at the hands of weapons. We salute you, Daffy. Never forget. The value of the shares in 8 companies had their sharpest increase in military spending since the Cold War, leading to our, yes, you and me, my dear listener, our $250 billion sovereign wealth fund securing an increase of $76 million between October 2023 and June 2025, which are some dates that you might recognise as being really fucking close to the present. And with wars in the Middle East and the Ukraine, they effectively turn our sovereign wealth fund into a war crimes Patreon. Yeah, look, I get it. As much as we'd all like to live in a world where every country is peaceful and no one needs for weapons of defense, that's unfortunately not the reality we live in. Haters are gonna hate bomb. I hear you, haters, I do. But that doesn't make it okay. You know, just because every so often we invest in defense of the Ukraine doesn't mean that it is okay to invest in these weapons, because they also inevitably get used for the genocide of somewhere like Gaza. The Future Fund has made a 172% return on investing in Israel's biggest bomb maker, Elbit Systems. See, the children really are the future, my friends. In our case, dead children. Yeah, stack them up high as our share values have increased this year. 172% return on dead children. We're not just investing in weapons, we're investing in the next generation of haunted playgrounds. Elbit Systems describes itself as the backbone of the IDF's drone fleet, which has been used extensively in the assault on Gaza. Which has been used extensively on the genocide of Gaza. Got it, nailed it. Its portfolio also includes systems for command and control, military aircraft and helicopters, armed remote control boats, and land vehicles. The value of the fund's holding in Lockheed Martin, a US headquartered company that produces the F-35 Joint Strike Fighter, increased by 23% from 71 million to 88 million. And before you get on your high horse, investing in Lockheed Martin's F-35 program is basically just investing in our own interests, as we have contracts to sell components for those F-35s. If there are no F-35s, then we won't need to sell those components anymore, would we? That's 2 government contracts down. We're just hemorrhaging money at this point. Don't worry about taking blood money, my friends. Don't worry about it. If it's good for comedians doing the Saudi Arabian Comedy Festival, well, then it's good for us too. Although I would say these weapons are hardly the first bombs the Future Fund has invested in. Here's a little known fact. Did you know that the Future Fund put $50 million into the short-lived streaming service Quibi? A sentence so odd that it sounds like it was from an alien trying to blend in with humanity. Invested money into the future of cinema, Quibi. I'll just say, Quibi is 100% the kind of investment an alien wearing a human skin, the same way that Trump wears a suit, you know, to hide his true shape while pretending to present as a businessman. That's exactly the kind of investment that they would make. Quibi! Yes, the future of cinema! They've gone from investing in streaming platforms that died in 6 months to weapons that will ensure 6 months to die is optimistic. But hey, it's not like the government were complete monsters. No, they gave the Future Funds a directive to also invest in some good things.
Australia's sovereign wealth fund has been directed to consider investments in green energy and housing, but only if there's money to be made.
See? Housing, climate investment, good things. They even spun off and went and invented the Medical Research Future Fund, the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Land and Sea Future Fund, the Future Drought Fund, the Disaster Ready Fund, the Disability Care Australia Fund, and of course, the most famous of all the funds, the Housing Australia Future Fund. We've got a whole cinematic universe of funds now. So that's got to be a good thing, right? How does it work? How does all of this work?
The Treasurer is wanting the fund to consider, when it's reasonable, when he says it makes financial sense, putting money into 3 key areas. He wants them to invest in housing to get more stock into the housing market. He also wants the fund to look at investments into energy renewables, the transition away from fossil fuel power, and the third thing is a more general infrastructure play. There's also a point today where he said the government promises not to draw down the fund until 2032-33 rather.
Well, fortunately for us, there isn't a narcissistic dictatorial wannabe tanking the global economy because he learned a new word, tariffs, and wants to show the world that he's a big boy who's a smart guy and definitely knows how money works. Fuck. And he definitely didn't sink the stock market with the Dow and S&P 500 and Nasdaq seeing their worst days since April due to renewed tariff threats. That definitely didn't happen. No! No! Bad headline. Bad, you get out. Get out. Get out of here. Nobody invited you here, headline. You're embarrassing me. I don't like this. I don't like when you behave like this, headlines. Don't undermine me in the middle of my own show. Like, this is an unstoppable plan that is guaranteed to return money for building houses and will not struggle for the next 4 years as the whims of a giant man-child holds the global economy in his hands. Also, definitely a good thing that those hands are very big and good and normal and not weird and small at all. I'm not saying the global economy is fragile, but if Trump sneezes near a spreadsheet, then the ASX drops faster than the Defense Department's ethics. And with renewables overtaking coal as the world's biggest source of electricity in the first half of this year, for the very first time ever, then surely, the Future Fund can stop being a top 10 shareholder in 3 of Australia's worst climate wreckers: Woodside Energy, Santos and Whitehaven Coal, with more than $1 billion worth of shares in these companies combined. Or at the very least, like, if you're gonna be invested in these companies, can we finally use the Future Fund's vast voting power to drive support for climate-related shareholder proposals as part of those companies? Because so far, it has failed to do so. They've been to many voting blocks since becoming shareholders, and they have failed to do so since 2021. 2021! That's such a long time ago. Are we really surprised that they're also investing in weapons when they haven't even used their power to try and drive the renewable energy into a position where it could be more investable? I mean, they're just thrilled that they're getting record profits in their new death and dismemberment portfolio. They don't seem to care about anything. Future Fund Chairman Peter Costello, yeah, remember that jerk, was heard saying, "War is bad, but the margins are incredible." They're really seeing success in what we should avoid calling explosive growth markets. But they're really thinking short term with this. I guess they don't call it the boom sector for no reason. I guess we just have to work both ends of this until we figure out which one is best, right? If we're going to insist on investing in war, then we also need to insist in investing on sustainable power so that we can reduce climate change, meaning that we can go to war with each other for longer. Yeah? That makes sense. So we invest in the climate. That means that we live longer, which means that we hate each other longer, which means that we go to war more often, or at least for longer. And we create a virtuous cycle of investment. Invest in climate, we live longer, we hate each other longer, we go to war more. Seems like the way to go to me. They have a mandate to make the most money possible, and that's the only way that I see this working. It's perfect balance of these two diametrically opposed ideas. Costello has also floated the idea that they're looking into investing in doomsday bunkers, blood diamonds, water, and of course, growing market of shock collars for future humans to be used as blood bags for billionaires. Because it is important to build a diverse portfolio. You can't put all of your eggs into the one explosive basket. Honestly, by 2035, the ASX will just be one long list of dystopian startups. They're cornering the market on Mad Max futures. It's quite a time to be alive. There is an argument to be made that it's the Future Fund not the ethical fund, and the future is war. I guess, you know, if you're an asshole. Which is fitting, because nothing drives GDP like PTSD. The goal of the Future Fund is to generate the maximum possible returns, right? I understand that. And to do that, we are investing in only the biggest and best players in the game. Lockheed Martin, Thales, the aforementioned Elbit Systems, Northrop Grumman, Boeing, hey, so hopefully the door doesn't fall off one of these investments, hey? Rolls-Royce, who would have thought that they didn't just make cars for wankers? Rheinmetall, and honestly, I know as much about them as you do. Man, you know your portfolio's ethically shaky when it reads like the guest list for a future war crimes tribunal. And look, it's not all bad news. After all, investing in weapon stocks are more ethical than you are giving them credit for, yeah? Yeah, I need you to think about this. Bullets and missiles are all made from recycled components. That's right, we're upcycling all sorts of materials to make the most ethically sustainable tools of death that we possibly can. They're like the Etsy of war crimes. Every bullet uses artisanal materials lovingly handcrafted from school shootings to battlefields. And it's not like we fund the war. No, no, no. Just the companies that make the war possible. I mean, if we didn't invest in these companies, they'd have to go back to swords. And that would be really harsh. Having to look your opponent in the eye as you stab him to death. At least this way we can do it from a distance, right? And we can keep PTSD at a minimum. I just feel like it's good for their mental health and it's good for the country. The Future Fund says ethical investment guidelines allow weapons, but public pressure has meant that they can't invest in cigarettes because they're not monsters, of course. Look, if you choose to kill yourself with filthy cigarettes, that's your business. If, however, one government, any government, has decided that it is your time to die, that's just good business. And that includes the Housing Australia Future Fund, which grew up to $10.9 billion as of mid-2025 because of its wonderful investments in weapons. No longer is living in a house built by blood money just for the rich and powerful. No! Even the poor and vulnerable can live in a house that's built by blood money. I would call that proper equality for all. It's the version of lifestyles of the rich and the famous that we didn't think we'd ever get to live on our end of the class spectrum. So it's just, you know, a taste of what's possible with the Future Fund's long-term strategy of betting against humanity. It's the dream of every Aussie battler to finally afford a one-bedroom apartment built on top of an ethical nightmare. Oh, beautiful. Beautiful. And finally, it is Name News. SBS News, the service invented 50 years ago to provide multicultural radio services in Australia in order to reflect the country's growing multicultural society, has made the news. And like, not in the normal way that SBS makes the news, I mean, but like actually writing and delivering the news. No, don't be silly. No. They've done something, and another news outlet is snitching on them. So let's look into that, shall we? SBS, as of this date, SBS staff remain unable to use the word Palestine in news stories. And this is despite the federal government officially recognising its statehood at the UN last month. SBF staff were informed the term occupied Palestinian territories would be still used when referring to the Gaza Strip, the West Bank and East Jerusalem. The multicultural broadcaster confirmed it welcomes all cultures except those currently under siege by Israel. SBS management went on to say, our commitment to diversity does not extend to the map, alright? And with the devastating budget cuts that they took under the coalition government, meaning even if they were to recognise Palestine, they couldn't afford to update their maps anyway. So it's just practical this way. So they're just saving your money. According to an editorial style guideline update recently circulated, its journalists are permitted to qualify that Australia now recognises those areas as the State of Palestine, or that Australia and the majority of UN member states now recognise the State of Palestine, but are not to refer to it as that in editorial copy or without some sort of qualification. SBS management went on to say, look, we're just avoiding bias, and proudly announced that it had achieved the perfect balance between cowardice and compliance. In 2025, SBS celebrated its 50 years of bringing diverse voices to the air with the slogan, "We go there." Ooh, we go there! Although apparently the there that they go to has a few terms and conditions, and the there doesn't include Palestine's recognition. I hear that they're already preparing for their 60th anniversary with the slogan, SBS, the multicultural network where all cultures are welcome, provided they're pre-approved by legal. They're just protecting their staff from the horror of receiving a difficult email. You know, war correspondents, they knew what they were getting into. They signed up to go to war. But these guys sitting behind the desks, back in safe offices, back home, oh, they're soft. They're soft journalists. They aren't prepared for the kind of strongly worded horrors that they might encounter in an email. How many exclamation points can the human mind handle? I'll tell you, it's less than you think. Devastating, really. While this is completely off the books, the term Palestine is permitted in specific contexts, such as a direct quote where a person self-identifies as being from Palestine. So that's nice, I guess. In official names such as the Palestine National Football Team or the Palestine Olympic Committee, which I guess means Palestine doesn't need recognition, it needs rebranding, right? Because if they're willing to recognize corporate entities or like names of things, then like Palestine can rebrand, become a corporation. And in this day and age, there are only 2 rebranding names that are actually available. I think you'll find all the other names have been taken, which is why everyone uses the same naming structure. We can either call it Palestine Plus, or we can go with what I think is the most logical rebranding name, Palestine Max. Or in 6 months' time, it could just be Max, and then it can go back to Palestine Max. Like, it's a whole journey that we can go on. It'll be a lot of fun. So we can get some news out of it, and it's a bit of bouncing back and forth. We'll keep the conversation alive by changing our name all the time, and nobody will ever be confused. I mean, or they'll be less confused than they already are about Palestine, the name of Palestine, where it is, where the borders are, all that sort of stuff. Like, we're just keeping on brand, I guess. I mean, this final insistence that they can name the country in a historical reference to the area known as Palestine before 1948. So it gets like a fun new name. Like Prince! Oh, like Prince in the 2000s, yeah. It could be like the country formerly known as Palestine, and we can like design it to have an unpronounceable symbol as a statement piece to further emphasize the matter. This is getting really fun. We can really get into this with the whole like Palestine Max name change and then make it like, but didn't change the word Palestine to the sign and be like unpronounceable symbol Max. This is going to be a lot of fun, guys. The next few months of Palestinian fun. And although the ABC updated its own policies permitting ABC reporting to use Palestine when referencing the geographical area, history, community, and the intended state encompassing the occupied Palestine territories. SBS staff were reminded that while the government recognises Palestine, SBS management still doesn't recognise courage, nor the right side of history. Apparently, SBS's refusal to call Palestine a state in its editorial guidelines is proof of censorship, according to some people, which I think is odd, because refusing to automatically parrot the government's position is literally the definition of journalistic independence. It's like accusing a vegetarian of being too obsessed with not eating meat, you know? It doesn't make sense. I'm not saying that they made the right stance, as SBS management refusing to allow their journalists to not call Palestine Palestine is as perplexing as something happening in politics that is both morally correct and diplomatically competent happening in the same week. Like, it's genuinely confusing, and I don't know how we handle it as a populace, but it just proves that they're not coerced by the government, which I guess in recent years they've had to prove that, and maybe this is their way of proving that, which feels like a really backwards way to prove that you're not a government talk piece. SBS, are you okay? Are you okay? Do you need help? We can have a chat later. So on the one hand, we have a newsroom refusing to parrot government language, which is good editorial independence, the very core of journalistic ethics. And on the other hand, they're refusing to be objectively correct, which is kind of confusing. It's like, that's the kind of integrity that starts to look suspiciously like stubbornness. It's like watching someone refuse to give a seat to a pregnant lady on a crowded train on principle, you know, being like, I won't be told what to do, and then refusing to give up the seat despite it being morally the correct thing to do. You know? Crazy. Imagine if every government recognition required a newsroom vocabulary update. Oh, effective immediately, all journalists must refer to the Treasurer as Daddy Inflation Slayer. Please update your autocorrect to replace the word cuts with efficiency dividends. And all maps must now label the Great Barrier Reef as the Adequate Coral Opportunities Growth Zone. If you want state-aligned news, there are plenty of countries offering that service. But the entire point of the ABC and SBS is that they don't flinch when governments do. Otherwise, we'd just call them ABC, the Albanese Broadcasting Corporation, you know? If your first instinct when a newsroom doesn't copy government phrasing is to yell censorship, hey, congratulations, you've officially confused journalism with stenography. I mean, I almost want to applaud them. Like, bravo SBS, standing strong against state control, right? But then you remember that the state, in this case, is actually doing the correct thing for once. It's like watching a vegan protest at a butcher that just recently turned into a salad bar. Confusing, I know. SBS has basically found itself trapped in a kind of ethical Mobius strip where every decision simultaneously proves and disproves its own integrity. They're both heroes of editorial independence and accidental defenders of semantic colonialism. It's Schrodinger's journalistic ethics. They're right and wrong until you open the press release to see which one they've done. The thing is, right, it isn't censorship. Just objectively, it isn't censorship. It's bureaucratic caution. That's what it is. And that's, I think, much worse, because censorship is at least passionate. Bureaucratic caution, that's just censorship with a swivel chair and a HR department. Self-imposed censorship, really. These journalists are literally being told, yes, you're right, but not yet. It's too early for that. We have to wait and see how everybody thinks. Which is how every moral failure in history starts. It's the ultimate paradox. Our public broadcasters are so independent, they'll die before agreeing with anyone, even if it's about doing the right thing. And that, my friends, brings us to the end of the episode. Thank you so much for hanging around. I think this was a fun one. I hope you enjoyed yourselves. If you made it this far, you've either fallen asleep or you've had a good time. Either way, I appreciate your company, and I hope that you'll join us next time. If you haven't already, please do join the Patreon to get your bonus story. Fun bonus story this week happening over in the UK, and you definitely going to want to check that out. And do come out to one of the live shows. I always appreciate when you guys show up. Thank you so much for making all of this possible. I genuinely appreciate it. Thank you. Bye-bye.